What if you woke up tomorrow and found out you were getting $147 richer every second? That's the reality for Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah of Brunei. His wealth isn't just mind-blowing, it's almost unreal. But how did he get there? And what's life really like when you're that rich? Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah isn't just Brunei's monarch. He's also the country's Prime Minister, Minister of Defense and Minister of Finance. Talk about wearing multiple hats. He's been sitting on the throne since 1967, making him one of the longest reigning monarchs in the world. That's a lot of time to accumulate some serious cash. From prince to sultan. Every royal story has its beginnings, and Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah's is no exception. Born on July 15, 1946, young Hassanal was destined for greatness from the start. As the eldest son of Sir Haji Omar Ali Saifuddin, he was groomed to take the throne from an early age. But who could have predicted the incredible journey that lay ahead? Hassanal's path to power wasn't just handed to him on a silver platter. He received a top-notch education studying in Malaysia and Britain. This worldly experience would later prove invaluable in his role as sultan. But the real twist in his story came in October 1967, when his father made a surprising move. He abdicated the throne. At just 21 years old, Hassanal Bolkiah became the Sultan of Brunei. Talk about a career change. Most people his age were worrying about college exams or their first job. Hassanal, he was suddenly in charge of an entire country. The official coronation took place in August 1968, cementing his place in history as one of the youngest monarchs to ascend to the throne. Now you might be wondering, what makes Brunei so special? The answer lies beneath the ground. Brunei sits on a gold mine, or more accurately, an oil field. The country's vast reserves of oil and natural gas have been the backbone of its economy for decades. And guess who controls all that wealth? You got it, the Sultan himself. This black gold has transformed Brunei from a small, relatively unknown sultanate into a powerhouse of wealth. The timing couldn't have been better for young Hassanal. As he took the reins of power, the global demand for oil was skyrocketing. Suddenly, Brunei was sitting pretty, and its new sultan was at the helm of a very lucrative ship. But Hassanal Bolkiah wasn't content with just being a figurehead. He had bigger plans. Over the years, he's managed to consolidate his power in ways that would make most modern leaders green with envy. Not satisfied with just being sultan, he took on the roles of Prime Minister, Minister of Defense, and Minister of Finance. Talk about wearing multiple hats. This concentration of power has allowed the Sultan to shape Brunei according to his vision. He's promoted a conservative ideology known as Malay Muslim monarchy, positioning himself as the defender of Islam in the country. It's a clever move, really. By aligning himself with religious and cultural values, he's strengthened his position and silenced potential opposition. The $27.70 billion man. Now that we've seen how Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah rose to power, let's talk about the numbers that really matter. His mind-boggling net worth. We're not just talking about millions here, folks. We're diving into the realm of billions. The Sultan of Brunei is estimated to have a net worth of around $27.7 billion. That's a billion with a B. To put that into perspective, if you had $1 for every second that's passed since the year 2000, you'd still have less money than the Sultan. It's the kind of wealth that's hard to wrap your head around. But how does he stack up against other world leaders? Well, let's just say he's in a league of his own. Most heads of state are worth a few million, maybe a billion if they're lucky. The Sultan? He's playing a whole different game. He makes the average billionaire look like they're living paycheck to paycheck. Compare him to other royals, and the picture gets even more interesting. The British royal family, for instance, is estimated to be worth around $88 billion collectively. That's for an entire family tree. The Sultan of Brunei, he's got nearly a third of that all by himself. Talk about punching above your weight class. Now you might be thinking, sure, he's rich, but how rich can one person really be? Well, buckle up, because we're about to find out. The Sultan's wealth isn't just sitting in a bank account somewhere. No, he's turned spending money into an art form. Imagine having so much money that you could buy a new Rolls-Royce every day for a year and barely make a dent in your fortune. That's the kind of wealth we're talking about here. The Sultan's car collection alone is worth more than the GDP of some small countries. But cars are just the beginning. We're talking about a man who lives in a palace with 1,788 rooms. a man who has a private jet decked out in gold, a man who once paid $20,000 for a haircut. And trust me, we're going to dive into all of that extravagance in detail. The Sultan's spending habits make your average lottery winner look frugal. He's not just rich, he's redefined what it means to be wealthy. When most people think of treating themselves, they might splurge on a nice dinner or a new gadget. When the Sultan treats himself, he buys hotels. Yes, you heard that right, hotels, plural. But here's where it gets really interesting. All this wealth, all this power, it comes with a price. The Sultan isn't just a rich guy living his best life. He's the absolute monarch of a nation. His wealth isn't just his own. It's intertwined with the fate of an entire country. A palace fit for a king. When it comes to royal residences, most people think of Buckingham Palace or Versailles, but there's a palace that makes those look like cozy cottages. Welcome to the Istana Nurul Iman, the official residence of the Sultan of Brunei. This isn't just any palace, it's the largest residential palace in the world, recognized by Guinness World Records. Imagine a building so massive it covers 2.2 million square feet. That's about 50 acres of pure luxury. To put that in perspective, it's nearly 3 times the size of Buckingham Palace. But size isn't everything, right? Well, the Istana Nurul Iman doesn't skimp on the details either. This architectural marvel boasts 1,788 rooms. That's not a typo, 1,788 rooms. You could sleep in a different room every night for almost 5 years before you'd have to repeat. And we're not just talking bedrooms here. The palace features 257 bathrooms. That's more toilets than most small towns have. Feeling a bit warm? Take your pick of 5 swimming pools. Need to park your car? No problem. The garage can hold 800 vehicles. It's like a small city within a palace. But the real showstopper is the banquet hall. This isn't your average dining room. It can accommodate 5,000 guests. Imagine throwing a party where you could invite the entire population of a small town. That's the kind of entertaining the Sultan can do without breaking a sweat. The palace isn't just about size and numbers though. It's a masterpiece of design and luxury. Commissioned by the Sultan himself in 1984 to mark Brunei's independence from the UK, it was designed by renowned Filipino architect Leandro Locsin. The result is a stunning blend of Islamic and Malay architecture with modern touches. Let's talk about the bling factor. The palace is adorned with gold and diamond decorations. We're not talking about a bit of gold leaf here and there. This is opulence on a scale that's hard to comprehend. Chandeliers dripping with crystals, intricate gold leaf designs on the walls, and precious stones incorporated into the decor. It's like something out of a fairy tale. The palace's location adds to its grandeur. Situated on the banks of the Brunei River, it offers stunning views and serves as a symbol of the nation's wealth and power. It's not just a home, it's a statement. The $9 billion garage. Most enthusiasts dream of owning a few luxury vehicles, but for Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah, a few just won't cut it. His garage is more like a small city, housing an estimated 7,000 cars worth a staggering $9 billion. That's not a typo. We're talking about billions with a B. The crown jewel of this automotive empire, Rolls-Royce. The Sultan owns around 500 of these British luxury cars, making his family responsible for nearly half of all Rolls-Royce purchases globally during the 1990s. Imagine having so many Rolls-Royces that you could drive a different one every day for over a year and still not repeat. But the Sultan's taste in cars isn't limited to just one brand. His collection is a who's who of luxury and performance vehicles. Picture rows upon rows of Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, and Aston Martins, each more valuable and rare than the last. Speaking of rare, the Sultan's garage houses some truly unique specimens. Take, for instance, the only right-hand drive Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR in the world. This isn't just a car, it's a piece of automotive history, a road-legal version of a Le Mans race car. Only 26 of these were ever made, and the Sultan has the rarest of them all. Then there are the McLaren F1S. Most collectors would give their right arm to own just one of these legendary supercars. The Sultan, he has 5. That's right, 5 of the most iconic and valuable cars ever made, sitting in his garage like it's no big deal. But wait, there's more. The Sultan also owns a Lamborghini Murcielago LP 640. This Italian bull isn't just about raw power and striking looks, it's a testament to automotive engineering and design, and it's just one of many Lamborghinis in his collection. The Sultan's passion for cars goes beyond just owning them. He's known to indulge in some high-speed fun, racing Ferraris at midnight through the streets of Bandar Seri Begawan, Brunei's capital. Imagine the sight, the country's absolute monarch, tearing through empty streets in a multi-million-dollar supercar while the rest of the city sleeps. This car collection isn't just about quantity, it's about quality and exclusivity. In 2011, the Sultan was awarded the Guinness World Record for the largest Rolls-Royce collection. It's not every day that your hobby lands you in the record books, but then again, the Sultan isn't your everyday car collector. Flying high. When you're the Sultan of Brunei, having a fleet of luxury cars just isn't enough. You need to take your opulence to new heights. Literally, Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah's collection of private aircraft is nothing short of extraordinary, rivaling the air forces of some small countries. At the heart of this aerial armada is a custom Boeing 747-430, valued at a staggering $431 million. This isn't your average private jet. It's a flying palace, complete with gold fixtures that would make King Midas jealous. The interior of this aircraft is a testament to the Sultan's taste for luxury, featuring solid gold wash basins in the lavatories. Imagine washing your hands in a sink worth more than most people's homes. But the customized Boeing 747 is just the tip of the iceberg. The Sultan's fleet also includes a $138 million Airbus and a $251 million Boeing 767. These aren't just modes of transportation, they're statements of wealth and power. Each aircraft is equipped with state-of-the-art technology and lavish interiors that would make even the most seasoned first-class traveler green with envy. The combined value of the Sultan's private aircraft collection is truly mind-boggling. We're talking about a fleet worth hundreds of millions of dollars, possibly even crossing into the billion-dollar range. It's the kind of air power that would make some national airlines look like budget carriers. But why stop at just owning these flying palaces? The Sultan takes his love for aviation to the next level by gifting aircraft to family members. In a move that puts most birthday presents to shame, he once gave his daughter an Airbus A340 as a gift. Most parents might give their child a car when they turn 16. The Sultan gives a commercial-sized aircraft. This extravagant gift-giving extends beyond just his immediate family. The Sultan has been known to present close friends and allies with aircraft as well. It's a level of generosity that's hard to comprehend for most of us who consider a nice dinner out as a splurge. The Sultan's fleet isn't just about luxury and showing off wealth, though. These aircraft serve practical purposes too. They're used for state visits, allowing the Sultan to travel in style and security befitting his status. When you're the leader of a nation, you can't exactly hop on a commercial flight and wait in line at security. The $20,000 haircut. Take getting a haircut, for example. For most of us, it's a quick trip to the local barber or salon. For Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah, it's a $20,000 experience that involves international travel, luxury accommodations, and a hefty tip that would make most people's jaws drop. The Sultan's haircuts aren't just about maintaining his appearance. They're a testament to his immense wealth and the lengths he'll go to for personal grooming. His preferred stylist isn't just anyone with a pair of scissors. No, the Sultan flies in his favorite hair expert all the way from London, specifically from the Dorchester Hotel in Mayfair, one of the most exclusive areas in the British capital. Now you might be wondering, how on earth does a haircut end up costing $20,000? Well, let's break it down. First, there's the matter of getting the stylist to Brunei. The Sultan doesn't settle for economy class or even business class. We're talking about first-class airfare, which alone costs around $12,000, and that's just for a one-way ticket. But the expenses don't stop there. The stylist isn't just flown in for a quick trim and sent packing. The Sultan ensures his hair expert is treated to the finest Bruneian hospitality. This includes luxury accommodation in one of Brunei's top hotels and gourmet meals fit for, well, a sultan. All these expenses are, of course, covered by the royal coffers. Now, you might think that after all this, the actual haircut must be a lengthy, elaborate process involving rare shampoos made from unicorn tears and combs crafted from dragon scales. But in reality, the haircut itself is probably not too different from what you or I might get. The real kicker comes after the snip. Once the Sultan is satisfied with his new look, the stylist receives an envelope. But this isn't just any envelope, it's filled with thousands of dollars as a tip. This generous gratuity is on top of all the other expenses already covered. It's a level of tipping that would make even the most seasoned Las Vegas high roller blush. But here's the thing, this isn't a once-in-a-blue-moon splurge for the Sultan. According to sources close to the royal family, he goes regularly, sometimes every 3 or 4 weeks. That means the Sultan could be spending upwards of $260,000 a year just on haircuts. To put that in perspective, that's more than 5 times the median annual household income in the United States. This extravagant approach to personal grooming isn't just about maintaining a certain look. It's a reflection of the Sultan's overall lifestyle and his approach to, well, everything. When you're worth billions and you're the absolute monarch of an oil-rich nation, the concept of too expensive simply doesn't exist in your vocabulary. The $20,000 haircut is just one example of the Sultan's day-to-day expenses that would seem outrageous to the average person. It's a world where golden toothbrushes, diamond-encrusted pens, and solid gold sinks in private jets are the norm. Every aspect of the Sultan's life is touched by this level of opulence, from his meals prepared by world-class chefs to his wardrobe filled with bespoke suits and rare timepieces. Parties fit for a king. Take, for example, the Sultan's 50th birthday bash in 1996. This wasn't just a cake and candles affair. No, this was a 2-week celebration that cost a staggering $36.9 million. That's more than most people will earn in several lifetimes, spent on a single birthday party. The centerpiece of this epic celebration was a gala dinner that would make even the most lavish royal weddings pale in comparison. Picture this, thousands of guests, including world leaders and celebrities, dining on the finest cuisine prepared by internationally renowned chefs. The venue, none other than the Sultan's own palace, the Istana Nurul Iman, with its 1,788 rooms providing ample space for the festivities. But the real showstopper of the Sultan's 50th birthday wasn't the food or the guest list, it was the entertainment. In a move that solidified his status as the king of extravagance, the Sultan hired Michael Jackson to perform. The price tag for this private concert? A cool $25.8 million. That's right, the Sultan spent more on a single performance than most blockbuster movies cost to make. Imagine being one of the lucky guests at this party. You're sipping champagne worth thousands of dollars per bottle, surrounded by some of the most powerful people in the world, and then suddenly, the king of pop himself appears on stage for a private show. It's the kind of experience that money can't buy. Unless, of course, you're the Sultan of Brunei. But the Sultan's penchant for over-the-top celebrations isn't limited to his own birthdays. When it comes to his children's weddings, he spares no expense. In 2004, when Crown Prince Al-Muhtadi Billah tied the knot, the Sultan pulled out all the stops. The wedding festivities lasted for 9 days, featuring parades, fireworks, and enough pomp and circumstance to make a royal historian's head spin. The highlight of this wedding extravaganza? A performance by Whitney Houston, for which the Sultan reportedly shelled out $10.1 million. It seems that when it comes to entertainment, the Sultan has a taste for the biggest names in pop music, and the budget to match. These lavish celebrations aren't just about having a good time. They're a demonstration of the Sultan's wealth and power, a way to impress both his subjects and the international community. Each party is a carefully choreographed display of opulence, designed to reinforce the Sultan's status as one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the world. But here's where it gets interesting. While these parties are undoubtedly spectacular, they also raise some eyebrows. Critics argue that such extravagant spending is excessive, especially in a country where not everyone enjoys the same level of prosperity as the royal family. The contrast between these multi-million-dollar parties and the lives of ordinary Bruneians is stark, to say the least. Family drama. Prince Geoffrey, often referred to as the Playboy Prince, took the concept of living large to a whole new level. While the Sultan was known for his lavish lifestyle, Prince Geoffrey's exploits made his brother look practically frugal in comparison. Imagine having so much money that you could buy a luxury yacht and name it Tits. complete with tenders called Nipple 1 inch and Nipple 2. That's exactly what Prince Geoffrey did. But a boat with a risque name was just the tip of the iceberg when it came to his extravagant spending. The prince's appetite for luxury knew no bounds. He amassed a collection of over 2,000 cars, including Bentleys, Ferraris, and Rolls-Royces. He bought hotels like the rest of us buy groceries, including the New York Palace Hotel and Hotel Bel Air in Los Angeles. But perhaps his most jaw-dropping purchase was a house in London. Not just any house, mind you, but the most expensive private residence in the United Kingdom, valued at a staggering $203 million. Prince Geoffrey's lifestyle wasn't just about material possessions. He was known for throwing extravagant parties that would make even the most seasoned socialite blush. These events often featured a harem of beautiful women, adding to his reputation as a modern-day Casanova. But all good things must come to an end. And for Prince Geoffrey, the party came to a screeching halt in the late 1990s. The Asian financial crisis hit, and suddenly, the Brunei royal family's seemingly endless wealth was under scrutiny. In a move that shocked many, Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah sued his own brother. The accusation that Prince Geoffrey had misappropriated a mind-boggling $14.8 billion from the Brunei Investment Agency. This wasn't just a family squabble. It was a financial scandal of epic proportions. The lawsuit exposed the darker side of managing such vast wealth. It revealed a complex web of financial dealings, shell companies, and questionable investments. The Sultan, known for his conservative leadership of Brunei, found himself in the uncomfortable position of having to publicly address his brother's excesses. The legal battle that ensued was nothing short of dramatic. Prince Geoffrey initially fled Brunei, living in exile and fighting extradition attempts. The case dragged on for years with twists and turns worthy of a Hollywood thriller. Eventually, a settlement was reached. Prince Geoffrey agreed to return most of his assets to the Brunei government. The process of reclaiming these assets was a monumental task. It involved a public auction of over 10,000 items, ranging from gold-plated toilet brush holders to life-size erotic statues. This family drama didn't just affect the royal household, it had far-reaching implications for Brunei as a whole. The scandal raised questions about the management of the country's wealth and the accountability of the royal family. For the Sultan, it was a stark reminder of the challenges that come with immense wealth and power. Managing billions of dollars isn't just about deciding what to buy next. It's about navigating complex financial systems, dealing with family expectations, and balancing personal desires with public responsibilities. The Prince Geoffrey saga also highlighted the stark contrasts within Brunei itself. While the royal family lived in unimaginable luxury, many ordinary citizens struggled with poverty and lack of opportunities. The public airing of the family's dirty laundry brought these inequalities into sharp focus. A nation of contrasts. The reality of life in Brunei paints a very different picture, one that's far removed from the opulent lifestyle of the Sultan. Brunei is a nation of stark contrasts. On one side, you have the royal family living in unimaginable luxury. On the other, you have ordinary citizens struggling to make ends meet. It's like two different worlds existing side by side, separated by an invisible but very real barrier of wealth and privilege. Let's look at some numbers. While the Sultan's net worth is estimated at $27.7 billion, the average monthly income for a Bruneian is around $2,400. That's not terrible by global standards, but it's a far cry from the golden toilets and private jets we've been talking about. And remember, that's just the average. Many Bruneians earn far less. The country's wealth comes primarily from its vast oil and gas reserves. Brunei is the fourth largest producer of oil in Southeast Asia and the ninth largest exporter of liquefied natural gas in the world. You'd think all this black gold would trickle down to the average citizen, but the reality is more complicated. The oil and gas revenues are managed by the government, which is essentially controlled by the Sultan. While some of this wealth does go towards public services, Brunei offers free healthcare and education to its citizens. A significant portion seems to disappear into the royal coffers. This system has led to some pretty unusual economic situations. For instance, Brunei has no income tax. Sounds great, right? But it also means the government relies heavily on oil and gas revenues to fund public services. As global oil prices fluctuate, so does the stability of Brunei's economy. The wealth disparity in Brunei raises some serious ethical questions. Is it right for one family to control so much of a nation's wealth? What responsibilities does the Sultan have to his people beyond providing basic services? And how sustainable is this system in the long run? These questions become even more pressing when you consider Brunei's economic challenges. Despite its oil wealth, the country has struggled to diversify its economy. Youth unemployment is a growing concern, with many young Bruneians struggling to find jobs that match their qualifications. Dominic Mueller, an expert on Islam in Southeast Asia, points out that the Sultan has increasingly turned to religion over the past 3 decades. This shift mirrors the state mufti's narrative and may be a strategy to maintain control and address the social and economic challenges Brunei faces as oil revenues dwindle. The government has tried to address these issues with its Vision 2035 program, which aims to diversify the economy and reduce dependency on oil, but progress has been slow, leaving many Bruneians uncertain about their future. All of this paints a picture of a nation at a crossroads. On one hand, you have the incredible wealth and luxury enjoyed by the royal family. On the other, you have a population facing economic uncertainty and limited opportunities. The contrast becomes even more stark when you consider some of the things we've discussed earlier. Remember that $20,000 haircut? That's more than 8 times the average monthly income in Brunei. The Sultan's car collection, valued at $9 billion, is worth more than what most Bruneians will earn in several lifetimes. Controversy and backlash. In 2014, Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah introduced a strict interpretation of Sharia law in Brunei, setting off a firestorm of international criticism and backlash. This wasn't just a minor legal tweak. We're talking about laws that permit severe punishments like death by stoning for gay sex and adultery, amputation for theft, and public flogging for abortion. The United Nations didn't mince words, calling these punishments cruel and inhuman. It's like Brunei suddenly decided to take a time machine back to the Dark Ages. The implementation of these laws wasn't just a domestic issue. It quickly became an international scandal, putting Brunei and its Sultan in the global spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Celebrities, politicians, and human rights organizations from around the world spoke out against the move. George Clooney, Ellen DeGeneres, and Elton John were among the big names calling for a boycott of the Sultan's hotels. Speaking of hotels, remember those luxury properties the Sultan owns around the world? Well, they suddenly became the targets of protests and boycotts. The Dorchester in London and the Beverly Hills Hotel in Los Angeles, both owned by the Sultan, found themselves at the center of a storm. Imagine being a Hollywood star and suddenly feeling guilty about sipping cocktails by the Beverly Hills Hotel pool. The backlash wasn't just limited to social media outrage and celebrity boycotts. Some companies and organizations took concrete action. Deutsche Bank banned its staff from staying at the Sultan's hotels. The TV Choice Awards in the UK moved its annual ceremony from the Dorchester. Even the British royal family, not exactly known for wading into controversy, distanced themselves from the Sultan. All this negative attention put a serious dent in the Sultan's carefully crafted image. For years, he had positioned himself as a benevolent ruler, using his oil wealth to provide for his people. Now, he was being portrayed in the international media as a human rights violator. It's quite a fall from grace for a man once known for his lavish parties and billion-dollar car collection. The Sultan's response to the backlash was interesting, to say the least. He defended the laws, saying they were meant to educate, respect, and protect the legitimate rights of all individuals, society, or nationality of any faiths and race. That's right, he tried to frame these harsh punishments as a form of education and protection. It's like saying you're helping someone by hitting them with a stick. But here's where it gets really intriguing. Despite all the tough talk, the Sultan eventually backpedaled a bit. He announced a moratorium on the death penalty, saying it wouldn't be enforced. It's almost as if he realized that being known as the guy who stones people to death isn't great for your international image or hotel bookings. This whole controversy raises some fascinating questions about the role of absolute monarchs in the modern world. How much power should one person have to shape the laws of an entire nation? And what happens when that person's decisions clash with international norms and human rights standards? It also highlights the complex relationship between wealth, power, and morality. The Sultan's vast fortune allowed him to live a life of unimaginable luxury and implement whatever laws he saw fit. But that same wealth made him vulnerable to international pressure through boycotts and protests. Money might buy you power, but it can't always buy you respect or immunity from criticism. The Sharia law controversy also had an interesting effect on how people viewed the Sultan's wealth. Suddenly, those golden toilets and million-dollar cars didn't seem so impressive. They became symbols of excess and disconnect from the realities of ordinary people. It's a reminder that public perception can change quickly, even for someone as powerful as the Sultan of Brunei. Absolute power in a modern world. Brunei might seem like a small, peaceful country nestled on the island of Borneo, but beneath its tranquil surface lies a system of governance that's more suited to the Middle Ages than the 21st century. Since 1962, Brunei has been under a state of emergency, a situation that's had a profound impact on the civil liberties of its citizens. It's like the country's been frozen in time, with the Sultan holding all the cards. This state of emergency isn't just some outdated law that nobody pays attention to. It's the bedrock of the Sultan's absolute power. It allows him to rule by decree, essentially making his word the law of the land. Imagine waking up one day and finding out that your ruler had decided to implement a new law overnight, without any debate or discussion. That's the reality in Brunei. The impact on civil liberties has been significant. Freedom of assembly, limited. Freedom of expression, restricted. Independent media, almost non-existent. It's a system that leaves little room for dissent or opposition. In fact, Brunei allows no opposition or independent civil society, maintaining strict control over media and public discourse. But here's where it gets really interesting. Despite these restrictions, there's surprisingly little visible dissent in Brunei. It's not because everyone agrees with the Sultan's policies. It's more like a collective holding of breath, a nationwide game of don't rock the boat. The government's control is so pervasive that even discussions about new laws, like the controversial Sharia penal code, are approached with extreme caution. This lack of dissent isn't just about fear of punishment. It's also tied to the complex relationship between the Sultan and his subjects. Remember all that oil wealth we talked about earlier? Well, some of it does trickle down to the people in the form of generous welfare programs. No income tax, free healthcare, free education. It's a trade-off that many Bruneians seem willing to accept in exchange for political freedom. But how sustainable is this system in our modern, interconnected world? As Brunei's oil reserves dwindle and global attitudes shift, the Sultan's absolute power faces new challenges. The push towards stricter Islamic observance, for instance, can be seen as a response to both political needs and a desire to maintain support from the Islamic establishment. Experts suggest that the Sultan's hardline approach to governance may be a response to economic pressures. There are fears that the welfare state he has maintained could become unsustainable as oil revenues decline. It's like trying to keep a leaky boat afloat. You can patch the holes for a while, but eventually you need to address the underlying issues. The Sultan's increasing reliance on religious legitimacy is another interesting aspect of his rule. Over the past 3 decades, he's aligned himself more closely with the state mufti's narrative. It's a clever strategy, really. By positioning himself as the defender of Islam, he's shoring up support from conservative elements in society. The future of Brunei's wealth. The tiny nation that once seemed to have an endless supply of riches is facing some serious challenges. Oil and gas, the lifeblood of Brunei's economy, aren't the cash cows they used to be. The country's oil production has been on a steady decline, dropping from its peak of 219,000 barrels per day in 2006 to just 100,000 barrels per day in recent years. That's a pretty steep fall for a nation that relies on oil and gas for over 90% of its exports. So what's a sultan to do when the well starts running dry? Well, if you're Hassanal Bolkiah, you turn to religion. Over the past few decades, the sultan has been cozying up to the state mufti, Brunei's top Islamic authority. It's not just about personal piety. This move is as much about politics as it is about prayer. By positioning himself as a defender of Islam, the sultan is shoring up support from conservative elements in society. It's a clever strategy, really. When your economic power starts to wane, why not lean on religious authority to keep your grip on the throne? But this shift towards stricter Islamic governance isn't without its risks. Remember the international backlash when Brunei introduced harsh Sharia laws in 2014? That wasn't just bad PR, it had real economic consequences. Hotels owned by the Brunei Investment Agency faced boycotts, and the country's reputation took a serious hit. It's a stark reminder that in today's interconnected world, even absolute monarchs can't completely ignore global opinion. The Sultan's religious pivot might also be a response to growing economic pressures at home. Brunei has long been a welfare state, with citizens enjoying perks like free healthcare, free education, and no income tax. It's a sweet deal, but it's getting harder to maintain as oil revenues decline. There are whispers that the Sultan is worried about the sustainability of this system. After all, it's easier to keep people happy when you're swimming in oil money. What happens when that money starts to dry up? Brunei isn't taking this lying down, though. The government has been trying to diversify the economy through its Wawasan Brunei 2035 inches plan. The goal is to transform Brunei into a nation with a dynamic and sustainable economy by 2035. Sounds great on paper, but progress has been slow. The country has struggled to attract foreign investment and develop non-oil sectors. It turns out that building a diverse modern economy is a bit more complicated than ordering a fleet of custom Rolls-Royces.